What is Pokémon really about? The franchise presents a deceptively whimsical world. However, on closer inspection, there's actually hidden philosophical depth. Pokémon contains its own ontology and metaphysics. It grapples with ethical questions about power and responsibility. And it presents a complete modern mythology with hero myths, elemental forces, and divine beings. What are Pokémon? Are they animals, persons, spirits, data, or something in between? What happens when they evolve? Are they the same individual, even though their minds and bodies have fundamentally changed? And what are the ethical implications of catching them all? Is catching and battling Pokémon good for them, or is it exploitative and cruel? Come with me now as we explore the ontology, identity, ethics, and mythology of Pokémon. Pokémon defy straightforward classification. They share many attributes with animals. They eat, sleep, reproduce, and have varied species. Yet they also display qualities of persons. Some can speak intelligently and use tools. And spirits or mythic entities, they wield elemental powers or act as guardian deities. Scholars have noted Pokémon are a kind of ontological hybrid. The franchise's creator Satoshi Tajiri drew heavily from Japanese Shinto and folklore. Shinto is an indigenous spiritual system from Japan incorporating animism and belief in kami, beings or spirits, inanimate and inanimate objects. In Shinto thought, there's no fixed barrier between the natural and the supernatural. Kami reside in animals, objects, landscapes, and natural forces. Nature is ensouled. Japanese folklore also teems with yokai, supernatural creatures that blur the lines between humans, animals, and spirits. Pokémon inherited this blended ontology. They are hybrid beings, creatures of nature, spirit, and data. This cultural foundation explains Pokémon's ambiguous ontology. Legendary Pokémon are quasi-divine, like Celebi or Lugia, who act as guardians of the forest or sea. At the same time, Pokémon like Pikachu behave much like a pet, bonding emotionally with humans while also producing lightning. Satoshi Tajiri recalls his childhood hobby of collecting insects. The intention was to recreate these formative experiences in the games. The bug catchers in Viridian Forest are a nod to this. And it's from this influence that we get the game mechanic of discovering, catching, and cataloguing Pokémon. This then seamlessly blends with technology via the use of Pokeballs, healing machines, and PC storage, which converts Pokémon into pure energy. This plurality means that Pokémon occupies a liminal category, both natural, supernatural, and technological. They are kami or yokai-like beings imbued with elemental powers and mythic forces, yet living alongside humans in the material and technological world, and there's no contradiction. The franchise never really pins down a single interpretation, allowing them to be at once companions, combatants, individuals, digital collectibles, natural beings, and supernatural quasi-gods. This leaves Pokémon as a sort of cultural Rorschach test, open for different post-secular interpretations and imaginations about how we ought to relate to them and treat them. A core mechanic of Pokémon is evolution, but it's not evolution in the Darwinian sense. I recall this was a point of moral panic amongst parents and educators who thought this would spread pseudoscience when Pokémon first came out, among other concerns about animal cruelty and blood sports, and childhood gambling by spending money on trading card booster packs. In Pokémon, evolution is not a gradual change of populations by natural selection, but rather a sudden metamorphosis of individuals resulting in an essential transformation. A Magikarp becomes a Gyarados. The body and even the mind completely changes, but the individual creature remains. This touches on the philosophical problem of personal identity. What preserves personal identity if the body and mind change? We know that personality changes with evolution, as chronicled in the anime when Ash's Charmander was meek, Charmeleon became rebellious, and Charizard was prideful. Is the evolved Pokémon the same individual as before? The canon answer is yes. The franchise uses evolution as a metaphor for character growth with phases of continuity and discontinuity. Pokémon's personal identities persist even though their essence changes. The self is not a static essence locked in a body, it's an evolving project. From a mythological perspective, evolution in Pokémon can be seen as apotheosis, ascension from a lower state to a higher state. In Pokémon lore, some evolutions are triggered by elemental stones, giving evolution a ritualistic property. It's as if each Pokémon has an inner ideal form, like Aristotle's Ontology. Evolution is the transition from potentiality to actuality, not creation of a new being. For Pokémon, therefore, personal identity is the continuity of life ordered towards its own mastery and completion. Underlying Pokémon evolution is struggle and overcoming challenge. Unlike Darwinian evolution, which occurs across many generations as an adaptation to the environment based on random mutations in the genes, Pokémon evolution is provoked by gaining experience, or XP, in battle. The Nietzschean maxim of "what doesn't kill you makes you stronger" is relevant here. It doesn't allow for inherent power-ups without effort, except for rare candies which are limited. We see a consistent theme across all Pokémon media that battle is a form of training, not just competition. In the anime, Ash's Pokémon often evolve or learn new moves in the heat of struggle or moments of crisis. This conveys how discomfort and even pain is essential for growth. This is a potential counter-narrative to the cynical view that Pokémon is just a world of constant fighting, where, instead, Pokémon is a world of constant growth, and the trainer's growth mirrors this. The Pokémon trainer improves themselves by training their Pokémon, creating a dyadic structure. Ash's personal growth is inherently tied up in his progression as a Pokémon trainer, collecting badges and so on, with the ultimate goal of becoming a Pokémon master. The growth of the human and Pokémon are intertwined and relational, in the same way your own personal growth is intertwined with your choices and actions. Think of yourself simultaneously as the Pokémon trainer and the Pokémon. If you take on challenges and overcome battles, and you treat yourself with care and respect, you will grow and improve. This is why self-cultivation improves self-esteem. It improves your relationship with yourself, just like it does between Ash and his Pokémon. Pokémon is not without ethical dilemmas, but I believe that the franchise is self-aware of this. It stages its own critique through characters and factions that play the role of philosophical antagonists or mirrors, forcing the protagonist or player to confront the dilemma head-on. Villains like Team Rocket and Team Plasma pose philosophical challenges to the central worldview, both embodying a different abuse of power or flawed ethic. Team Rocket treats Pokémon as resources. They poach, clone, and exploit Pokémon, reducing them to profit or weapons. Philosophically, Team Rocket acts out a dystopian scenario where Pokémon are treated as slaves or commodities. Their presence creates a moral contrast meant to implicitly affirm that Pokémon should be treated with compassion. Interestingly, Team Rocket's persistent failure and buffoonery undercuts their exploitative ideology. It suggests that the Pokémon universe is morally structured such that those who attempt to exploit Pokémon are doomed to fail. At the other extreme, Team Plasma and Pokémon Black and White argue that all Pokémon-human relationships are inherently exploitative. Team Plasma initially presents itself as a liberation movement for Pokémon. They claim that catching and battling Pokémon hurts them and is immoral, and they urge the Pokémon trainers to release their Pokémon. Throughout the game, Team Plasma grunts and sages give speeches reminiscent of real-world animal rights activists, some of the franchise's most vocal critics, that Pokémon are essentially enslaved, and that Pokémon battles are a cruel blood sport. The player must confront this view directly. Are you a liberator or an oppressor? Team Plasma is not entirely wrong. However, their absolutism and the manipulation behind it is exposed. Team Plasma's true leader, Getsus, is only using the rhetoric of liberation as a ploy to seize power, and he uses and abuses Pokémon himself to achieve his ends. It's as if the story acknowledges the validity of the question, but answers the people pushing this black and white narrative, pun intended, are not sincere and are misguided. The narrative suggests a synthesis. Pokémon can be caught, trained and battled, but only with care, respect and mutual trust. There is a power imbalance. The question is about how it should be used. This is a fact that we must grapple with ourselves. Humans are all essentially different from one another. No two human beings are identical. This difference means that absolute equality between two individuals is impossible. Equal but different is a logical contradiction. Usually when we talk about equality, we mean equality before the law, that people have the same human rights and are treated equally by our institutions. Of course, we know even this modest definition is not borne out in the real world. Nevertheless, in the course of our lives, we must navigate omnipresent power imbalances, parent and child, student and teacher, employee and employer. Even in friendship and marriage, power is seldom equally distributed. Like Pokémon and humans, there can never be a truly equal distribution of power among individuals. The question is about how it is used. I don't think that Pokémon fits neatly into Western ethical theories like rights-based ethics, like Team Plasma, or utilitarian ethics, like Team Rocket. It appears to explicitly avoid those organizing principles, instead operating on a mix of teleological or purpose-driven ethics, virtue ethics, and stewardship or relational ethics. Virtue and flourishing are achieved in Pokémon not by imposing equality between Pokémon and humans, nor by maximizing everyone's welfare and happiness, but by fulfilling one's potential, overcoming challenges, and becoming more powerful. Aristotle would find much to recognize in Pokémon. Each Pokémon has an inherent potential, a natural goodness that can be actualized through cultivating virtues unique to that individual Pokémon. Teleology, the idea that each being has a proper end or completion, is central to Pokémon. The entire structure of the games and anime, leveling up, evolving, mastering increasingly tough challenges, reinforces a teleological arc for each Pokémon and trainer. It evokes the Japanese concept of ikigai, or reason for being, life's purpose. Every Pokémon and every trainer has a unique role, and evolution is progression towards the Pokémon's full potential. To put it simply, the ethical good in Pokémon is for each being to become the best version of itself. I want to be the very best, like no one ever was. Being the very best has a distinctly Nietzschean flavor to it. The will to power, the idea that the fundamental drive in all living beings is growth, overcoming, self-mastery, and the expansion of power. Pokémon embodies this literally through leveling up and becoming more powerful in battle. It's an intuitive ethical system which appeals to children, but it has legitimate foundations in the philosophical literature. I encourage you to adopt a similar ethical system. Aim forthrightly at becoming the best that you can be. The truth is that we are severely limited by our sphere of influence. Many people take a utilitarian or rights-based stance on issues well outside their sphere of influence because they think it's the right thing to do. But this is basically impotent and a major sinkhole for their time and energy, which could meaningfully be invested in themselves and their own excellence. Pokémon trainers do have a duty to their Pokémon to develop their capabilities, helping them grow stronger and learn new skills. This reflects Martha Nussbaum's capabilities approach, which links the well-being of the individuals to them being able to pursue ends that they value and have good reason to value. Stewardship is a key concept if you want to think about your duty to others and the world around you. Pokémon trainers have superior power over their Pokémon, and thus a responsibility to do right by them. Relational responsibility is a moral logic that flows from self-cultivation and relationship with others. In other words, the goodness of a Pokémon trainer is measured by how well they train and care for their Pokémon. You too can enhance your own goodness by becoming a better person and then doing right by those in your immediate care, your relationships, your family, and your community. This arrangement will bring out a certain aesthetic quality. Just like assembling the most badass team of powerful Pokémon, leveling them up, and then taking out the Pokémon League. Strong Pokémon look awesome. Final evolutions are aspirational, and Pokémon mastery is life-affirming. So get out there and strive to be strong and powerful while always being kind and responsible for those around you. After 30 years, Pokémon has evolved into something akin to a modern mythology. It has its own creation myth. Arceus, the original one and creator who hatched from an egg, created Dialga, time, and Palkia, space. It has the legendary Pokémon as personifications of natural forces. Ho-Oh and Lugia and Johto are treated with reverence and have towers akin to temples. Moreover, the player could easily be understood as a hero who travels far and wide, encountering legendary beasts and calming gods, restoring balance to entire regions. All this creates a world that is more than just entertainment. For many, it forms a mythic and enchanted backdrop for their childhood. I've seen a lot of videos of fans lamenting that Pokemon doesn't feel as magical and immersive as it did in their childhood when they first stepped out of Pallet Town with their starter Pokemon. I think that's because it felt like this could be a real fantastical place, whereas now, as adults, they see the commercial element and the relentless schedule to produce ever more games and generations. In addition to the rich cosmology and mythological characters, it also has a plurality of stories and interpretations. True mythology allows for different stories and lessons to be drawn out at different times. I doubt many people think of Greek mythology as a single set of stories. It feels like a whole world of stories and characters. We only ever have bits and bobs of the story. You remember Heracles fighting the Hydra, or Theseus defeating the Minotaur, but you don't hold it all in your head. Likewise, Pokemon has a plethora of stories and events at this point, and you can pick out whatever's meaningful to you. For me personally, Generation 1 with its starter Pokemon and the Kanto region will always stand out. Training up my Charmander into Charizard, my Nidoqueen learning Thrash, evolving Eevee into Vaporeon, leveling up Magikarp into Gyarados, and finding the old Amber Fossil and reviving Aerodactyl was peak Pokemon for me. And that's just it. For some it's purely about the games, others remember watching the anime after school or trading Pokemon cards with their friends. Pokemon has a plurality of interpretations, offering different experiences and lessons. So, what is Pokemon really about? In philosophical terms, Pokemon is a simulacrum virtual world with its own metaphysics, ontology, cosmology, ethical system, and character development. Pokemon are ontological hybrids combining animals, kami or yokai, traditional Shinto animism spirits, guardians, quasi-gods, and technology. They undergo evolution, fundamentally changing their essence through metamorphosis rather than Darwinian evolution, aiming at higher and more powerful forms. This gives Pokemon and their trainers purpose and virtue through self-cultivation and personal growth. The ethical system in Pokemon is about overcoming challenge and growing stronger through the dyadic bond of human trainer and Pokemon. Pokemon is not really focused on rights ethics or utilitarian ethics. It's much more about relational responsibility, stewardship, and becoming the best one can be. Pokemon has become so rich and pluralistic. Everyone has their own experience and interpretation of Pokemon, and this makes Pokemon a modern-day mythology, complete with a creation myth, gods, heroes, and many stories and legends. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video has been fun and entertaining for you. If you like this video, why not check out my other philosophy videos, and consider subscribing.